At dawn, Officer Solis held our agreement beneath the checkpoint stamp. Behind me, Bastian Crowe's negotiator was in custody. Bastian had just destroyed the contracts that made his family powerful. Before I signed beside him, I needed to know one thing. Had the most feared man on the border offered me freedom, or simply found a gentler way to own me? 36 hours earlier, an auctioneer had spoken my name like it was evidence. The Northern Border Relief Fund had discovered falsified cargo records under my father's trust. The Keene name was being erased in front of 230 people. My legal endowment was reclassified as contested. Then Bastian Crowe stood. The room made space without being told. Lot 47, he said. I bid the Crowe family seat. The auctioneer stared. Bastian looked directly at me. The offer is for you. If the man everyone feared offered you protection in the same breath that your family destroyed your name, would you hear rescue, or the beginning of another trap? In the border territory, a seat was not a metaphor. 3 counties sat between mountain ranges and a river system no outside authority had fully claimed. The territory ran on private obligations, family enforcement, cargo agreements, and witnessed oaths. 6 families held voting seats at the table that decided which roads stayed open, which carriers moved freely, and whose paperwork became law. The decisions were written in clean language, but their consequences arrived in ordinary places. A route closed, and a clinic ran out of antibiotics. A carrier lost standing, and a settlement waited another week for fuel. My work had always lived in that gap between a sentence on paper and the person forced to live under it. That was why the loss of the Keene seat frightened me less as a family humiliation than as a public abandonment. Without an advocate who could challenge the private agreements, the people inside the corridor would be represented by whoever profited from keeping them dependent. Bastian knew that. He also knew I would not accept a rescue that replaced my father's control with his. The Keenes had once held one of those seats. My father lost it 2 years earlier. Quietly. He never told me. I learned when a routing authorization came back unsigned and a clerk said, "Miss Keene, your family hasn't had standing at that table since March." I sat in my office for 20 minutes after that call. Then I went back to work. I did not go to my father's house. I did not ask which lie had cost us everything. I knew how that conversation would go. He would offer a version of the truth that required my forgiveness before it required his accountability. During intermission, Bastian's legal negotiator brought me the draft. Dael Farris was composed in the polished, harmless way of men who wanted to be underestimated. Warm eyes. Careful hands. A voice made for easing people through decisions they might regret later. There's no pressure on timing, he told me, placing the papers on a side table by the glass. Bastian wanted you to have as long as you need. He said Bastian, not Mr. Crowe. I noticed. I read the agreement once for what it promised. Then again for what it wanted. It gave me independent authority over humanitarian routing agreements under Crowe standing. It protected me from inheriting Keene liabilities. It required a public alliance declaration. In border custom, that meant a witnessed oath. A marriage of record. Not necessarily private. Not necessarily love. But a binding union with legal force. On its face, it gave me a way to keep working. At the bottom left corner, I found the problem. The Crowe authentication seal was old format. Pre-reform. Retired 8 years earlier. I ran my thumb over the raised mark and felt old ink pressed into the paper. Then I found Bastian near the north windows, holding a drink he had not touched. His guard stood visible but distant, close enough to act and far enough not to turn the room into a cage. I stopped 3 feet from him. The seal is pre-2016, I said. His eyes met mine. Yes. That means this document can be attached to any pre-reform agreement in the registry. Yes. Including the original Delvane humanitarian contract. Before my father amended it. Yes. I drew one breath. You want me to use my access to the original contract framework to challenge the Marate family's claim on the Delvane corridor. Something sharpened in his face. Not surprise. Recognition. I want to stop a war, he said. The alliance is a legal strategy. Yes. The Marates are using my father's fraud to challenge every routing agreement in 3 counties. Yes. And if those agreements fail, medical transport, food delivery, and independent carriers lose access. Yes. I hated how much I respected a direct answer. Why tell me? I asked. Because you would find it eventually. The city lights reflected behind him in the glass. I would rather you find it now, he said, while you can still leave. That was the first exit he gave me. I did not take it. Not yet. I called my father from the car. Tell me what you erased from the original Delvane contract, I said when he answered. A long silence followed. Then he said, there was a community obligation clause. I closed my eyes. What did it require? Routing access for independent carriers in the Delvane corridor. Not only family-affiliated companies. The carriers transporting medication and emergency supplies. Yes. You removed their protection so the Marate family could consolidate routing fees. It seemed pragmatic at the time. Rain striped the windshield. The city blurred beyond it. People lost medical access for 8 months while that consolidation was negotiated. I was trying to protect our position. You were trying to protect your name. Amara, I have been cleaning up your decisions for 3 years without being allowed to name them. I'm naming this one now. I told him Bastian Crowe had made an offer. I told him I was considering it. I told him I would restore the community clause if I had the power. The key name will not be restored beside it, I said. Not if it means pretending your amendment was legitimate. He said nothing. Then, quietly, you'd use Crowe resources against your own family? No, I said. I'd use whatever access I have for the people your family erased. I ended the call before he could turn my anger into another lesson about loyalty. The next morning, the charity board granted me temporary access to the Conservatory's document room. Dael Farris was already there. He made coffee without asking. He knew the secondary lights, the archive cabinets, the old indexing system. He moved through that room like he belonged to its walls. You've worked here before, I said. For years, he answered pleasantly. I know every cabinet in this room. I watched him pour coffee into a white porcelain cup. No shake in his hand. No question in his expression. How long have the Marates had this information? I asked. Months, probably. They chose the auction because a public setting maximizes legal impact. Did Bastian know they planned to reveal it there? Dael paused. It was tiny. Almost elegant. He knew it was coming, he said. He positioned himself accordingly. True. But not an answer. I returned to the archive table and found the original Delvane contract. The community clause was there exactly as my father described. But attached behind it was something he had not mentioned. A named beneficiary schedule. 11 settlements in the Delvane corridor were listed individually as legal parties. Not beneficiaries in theory. Parties with standing. I read the names twice. Then I read them again. My father had not erased a paragraph. He had erased 11 communities from their own contract. They had been left dependent on families who could negotiate over their access, price their safety, and call it protection. I sat in that cold document room with my hands flat on the page. For years, I had believed I was repairing damage. But repair implied something intact remained beneath it. Those communities had lived under a lie my family created. Their names had been removed so cleanly that I had never known they existed in the first place. The grief did not arrive as tears. It arrived as a list of names I had never been taught to say. Caldon. Miravail. East Delvane. Rusk Hollow. 11 places made legally invisible because someone powerful found them inconvenient. I found Bastian on the upper level beneath the conservatory's curved glass ceiling. His jacket was off. His sleeves were rolled to his forearms. He looked tired in a way money could not hide. "The named beneficiary clause," I said. "You knew?" "Yes. If I restore it, the settlements have independent standing. They can challenge the Marates. They can challenge your family's security arrangements too." "Yes. You are offering me a seat that could reduce your leverage in the corridor." "Yes." I waited. "My mother negotiated half of our family's contracts," he said. "She believed they were supposed to protect people, not own them." His gaze lowered to his hands. "She disappeared when I was 19. The family explanation was that she made herself a liability, that she pushed too hard for community access, that she cost us leverage." His voice did not break. "That made it worse. I spent 12 years defending those contracts," he said. "And 12 years trying to decide whether she was right about what they could have been. You think restoring this clause is what she would have done? I think it is what should have been done in 2019. He looked at me then. "I did not have the legal mechanism. I did not have someone who could read the contract the way you can. You were waiting for me." "I was waiting for someone with your knowledge," he said. "Those were not the same thing in the beginning." It was not a romantic answer. It was an honest one. And honesty from Bastian Crowe was more frightening than charm. That night, alone in my hotel room, I faced a truth I had spent 11 years avoiding. I had made myself indispensable because being needed felt safer than being wanted. My father had taught me usefulness was the closest thing to love a person could earn. Solve the problem. Read the fine print. Fix what others broke. Never ask why you were the one cleaning up the mess. I had called it purpose. Some of it was purpose. But some of it was a cage I had built myself. If Bastian's alliance had been purely strategic, I would have accepted it immediately. So why did the real version frighten me? Because he looked at me as if I existed beyond what I could do for him. Because I wanted to believe him. And because wanting that made me feel reckless. The answer changed 36 hours after the auction began. Someone entered the document room overnight. There was no forced lock. No broken window. The access had been clean. 2 files had been moved. The original Delvane contract. And the Crowe authentication registry. I knew because I had marked their positions with the smallest shifts in alignment. A habit from years of working with people who insisted documents had never said what they plainly said. The folders had been returned. But photographed. I found Dael in the lower hall with the legal team. "The document room was accessed last night," I told him. "Who had a key?" "I can pull the access log." "I'm asking you." His warm expression did not change. I checked the documents around 11. "Standard security review. Did you move anything?" "No," he said it gently. Clearly. Like truth. But the registry had been returned 2 inches left of where I placed it. Dael was left-handed. He carried folders in his left hand. He set them down to the left without noticing. I had watched him do it the morning before. I walked away before he could see that I knew. Listen carefully. The betrayal was not the forged seal. It was who had placed it there. The third evening, the conservatory filled again. This time there were 260 people. The Marate family had taken a table near the front. 7 of them, all in black, all watching the clock. The alliance oath was scheduled for 9:15. At 8:47, I went to Bastian. "Dael accessed the document room," I said. His attention locked on mine. "Tell me." I told him everything. The folders. The photographs. The old seal. Dael's answer. The registry position 2 inches left. Bastian went still. "If it's Dael," he said, "he drafted the alliance contract. Including the old seal format. He has been my negotiator for 9 years. For the first time, I saw something in Bastian that was not power. Loss. Not loud grief. Not anger. The quiet realization that someone trusted had stood beside you while sharpening a knife. "What do you need to proceed?" he asked. Not, "I will handle it." Not, "Step back." What do you need? I need to read the beneficiary clause aloud at the oath, I said. Every settlement name. Every obligation. Both families hear it in public. That changes the ceremony. Yes. The Marates will object. Let them. He nodded once, then his expression changed. There is something you need to know before you decide. I waited. My family's contracts in Delvane were not always protection, he said. Before I took responsibility, independent movement was restricted. Access was used as leverage. He did not soften it. The Marates are right about one thing. The Crows benefited from the conditions created by the clause's removal. I stopped direct exploitation when I took over. But I did not dismantle the structure that allowed it. The conservatory glittered around us. People laughed too loudly. A string quartet played below. I called it protection, he said. The outcome was not different enough. I held that truth between us. Are you telling me because it matters legally? I asked. Or because you want me to know before I attach my name to yours? Both. Equally? Equally. I believed him. That did not mean I forgave him. Belief was not forgiveness. It was only the beginning of a harder choice. Then this is my condition, I said. When I read the clause, you acknowledge that the Crowe family benefited from its erasure. Publicly. No legal language to hide inside. His jaw tightened. Then he said, yes. And if the Marates object, your guards do not touch them. I address them. You have my word. If you stay for stories where devotion is measured by truth, restraint, and consequences instead of easy promises, subscribe. The vows worth trusting are usually the ones that cost someone something real. At 9:15, I walked to the center of the conservatory with the original Delvane contract in my hands. Dael stood at the legal table, holding the alliance papers. Miss Keene, he said, ceremony protocol requires. I know the protocol. His smile faded. I am exercising the legal specialist's right of prior disclosure under the Border Reform Charter. Then I turned toward the room. The original Northern Border Relief contract named 11 Delvane settlements as legal parties to the agreement. In 2019, the Keene Family Trust removed that clause from the public record. I opened the document. I am restoring it now. I read every name. I read every right. I read the obligation that independent carriers retain access to the corridor, regardless of which family controlled the roads. The room was silent. Then Bastian Crowe stepped forward. He could have stayed neutral. He could have protected his family's position. Instead, he said, the Crowe family acknowledges this obligation. We acknowledge that our contracts operated under conditions created by its removal. We acknowledge the harm. No one breathed. The Marate representative rose from his chair. This document is not part of the registered alliance. It is part of the border record, I said, which makes it relevant to every agreement made here. His mouth tightened. If you wish to challenge that reading, I said, we can do it in public. He sat down. Then I picked up the alliance contract. The old seal pressed against my thumb. The trap became clear. Dael had made the document vulnerable on purpose. The old authentication could be challenged. The photographed registry would become evidence. The Marates would declare the oath fraudulent. The Crows would respond. Both families would claim betrayal. And Dael would be waiting when the private contracts collapsed and the territory went to public tender. He had been feeding both houses toward a war that would make him indispensable afterward. I set the contract down. This version is irregular, I said. The authentication is piriform. I am voiding it. Dael's face changed. Only slightly. But enough. Miss Keene, I am drafting a corrected version tonight. Current authentication. Full beneficiary standing. Open routing access. I looked at Bastian. Do you consent? Every eye in the room turned toward him. He had the power to override me. He did not. Yes, he said. That was the second exit he gave me. Not with words. With authority he refused to use against me. Bastian's security team detained Dael quietly. No spectacle. No threats. A disciplined chain of calls, sealed access logs, recorded statements, and placed guards at every archive entrance. Power did not need to shout to close every door. Near midnight, Bastian came into the document room alone. He confessed, he said. I stopped writing. He accessed the files. He passed information to the Marate legal team for 2 years. Why? He said both families spent 40 years using people and never paying for it. He said the families always survived. The people underneath them did not. I looked down at the community names. He engineered a war to profit from the aftermath. Yes. And he was right about the harm. Bastian's face tightened. Yes. That does not excuse him. No, but it explains why he thought no one would notice the difference between him and the rest of you. Bastian sat across from me. For a moment, he looked exhausted enough to be ordinary. Then he said, I am dissolving the Crowe family's exclusive security contracts in Delvane. My pen stopped. All of them? All of them. The settlements can negotiate their own arrangements. Independent carriers will have open access. That ends your succession. Yes. Those contracts were the primary asset behind his claim to lead the Crowe family. Without them, the council would strip his standing before breakfast. His people would lose certainty. Rivals would exploit every weekend route. The Crowe house would survive, but not under his control. The house behind the seat I offered you will be smaller, he said. I need you to know that before you sign anything. Another exit. A poorer house. A more dangerous future. No guarantee that choosing him would ever be easy. I looked at the corrected agreement. I'm not signing tonight. He did not argue. I'm going to the dawn checkpoint at Delvane, I said. The carriers need access before morning routing begins. We witness it there, in front of the people this clause protects. All right. He stood to leave. Bastian. He looked back. Send word to the settlements first, I said. Before the council. They should know before anyone else. For the first time that night, something in him softened. Yes, he said. They will. At 1 a.m, I called my father. The beneficiary clause is restored, I told him. The key name is not. Amara, our name is attached to a fraud. You would let people remember us that way? I would let them remember what happened. He was silent. The communities you erased have names, I said. They remain in the document. If our family earns a better record someday, it will be through what we do next. Not through rewriting what we did before. A small sound came through the line. I raised you to be sharp, he said. You raised me to clean up your problems. I swallowed. I am glad it made me sharp. I am choosing what to do with it now. The Delvane checkpoint opened at 5:47. I arrived at 5:30. Mountain cold cut through my coat. 12 carrier vehicles waited in line, engines rumbling low in the pale dark. The drivers watched me with the guarded patience of people who had survived too many promises. Bastian arrived 10 minutes later. Alone. No guards. No escort. No Crowe vehicles behind him. He carried a folder and a pen. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. We stood at Solis's checkpoint table and unfolded the corrected agreement. Officer Solis had worked that crossing for 11 years. She knew every driver by name. She read the first page, then the beneficiary clause, then the section dissolving the Crowe family's exclusive contracts. This authorizes independent routing access? She asked. Yes, I said. All 11 communities have standing. Any carrier with a legitimate manifest can operate this route. She looked at Bastian. The Crowe contracts are dissolved as of this signature? Yes, he said. Your council will come after you. Yes. And you are doing it anyway. Yes. There was no pride in his voice. Only decision. Solis looked past us at the waiting carriers. Then she lifted her stamp. I signed first. Bastian signed after me. Solis countersigned as territorial witness. The stamp came down. One sharp sound. The first driver in line, a man I knew from relief records, looked at the document for a long time. Then he said, quietly, "Thank you." Not to me. Not to Bastian. To both of us. Bastian turned toward the mountains. His future had narrowed. His family would punish him. The council would call him weak because he had chosen people over leverage. But he had done it anyway. I had spent years believing I had to be useful to deserve a place beside anyone. That morning, I understood the difference between being needed and being chosen. Bastian had seen my value before I trusted it myself. But he had not used that knowledge to own me. He told me the truth, named the harm, paid for change, and left every final decision in my hands. Solis stamped the final manifest. The line cleared. Bastian's hand rested open beside mine on the table, close enough to choose, careful enough not to touch. Love is not safety when it asks you to disappear inside it. Would you choose someone dangerous if your boundaries remained part of the promise?